Okay, so we are here.
Yes, sir.
Podcast episode 3.
Back again
Yes.
in the basement.
Yeah, you threw on a jacket, I see.
Well, it's a little chilly in the basement, even though this is the first day, unofficial first weekend of summer. Happy Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Not that you're listening to this on Memorial Day, but I forgot. Anyways, you'll figure it out. It'll be good. So.
Yes. So, we'll start this one out, this podcast, with, have you noticed from our last two, we don't have an introduction.
Well, we did that thing last time, and we cut it all up. And now you've got a piece of paper in front of me with the scribbles on it.
Yeah, so we're going to actually create an intro, and we'll put that at the beginning before, what we're talking now.
Yeah.
In editing stage. Now, you've heard my song before, right?
Yes. How's that song? Did you get it finished?
I have not recorded the melody line that I showed you last week from Sax.
Right.
Yet.
Why not?
Because I had to do some final for band.
Okay.
Before that.
Oh, by the way, school's over. Yay!
Yes, school just ended this week.
Zoom school is over.
Yep.
Homeschooling is over. Apocalypse school is over. So, you haven't, you're going to put a little sax on this? What is this you're pulling up here?
Well.
Is this what you got started?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You played this for me. Yeah, this sounds cool.
But yeah, I just have to add the melody. But I'm pulling this up because you said you had ideas.
Oh, I just want it to be, original. All right, then I think that we're set. So check it out. You got your overview?
So, yeah.
What's this review?
This review is just from last episode. Just that whole conversation we had. I had one correction to make that I realized afterwards that was not on air. Do you remember when I was talking about the late 1940s and 1950s?
We're talking,
suburban
okay.
America
Yep.
and the white migration.
Yep, this is all on the podcast that we did. Help me, middle class.
Yeah, we don't have a name for it yet.
Okay.
There will be a name. It's the episode 2.
Episode 2. Okay.
But I said that they migrated into suburbs during that time period. I would like to note that in the 1920s, when we were talking about the slums and stuff and the boomings, during this economic boom, there was this is when the actual migration did start into the suburbs. When this boom happened, and some families had enough to start moving into the suburbs, so that's where it started. But the mass migrations happened during the 1950s and 40s.
Okay.
That's just the correction I'd like to make, because I think I said something like, this is when it started.
It started after World War II is what you said.
Yes,
so.
But that's when the mass migrations happened. It started in the 1920s.
Well, how flippin' professional of you to want to bring that up, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
It's,
but just in the 1920s, there wasn't mass migration.
Okay.
So that's just
correction corrected.
And
don't want any false information getting out on conversation transfer here.
And that project I based that whole episode on, I'd just like to tell you that I did get a really good grade on it. I received those because school ended.
Yeah.
I got a 195 out of 200 points.
Well, that's pretty darn good.
So I'm pretty happy with that.
Right arm.
Today's
topics.
Yes.
Okay, what's this? Split into 2 sections.
We're going to be doing 2 sections. The first section will be a little bigger than the second, and this episode might run a little shorter because we're not professionals on any of this.
Well, I think we've already made that quite clear. Just
We're
in the
going
first
to
5 minutes of this podcast, should have made it quite clear. So, Gardening, cool.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a little different spin because do you garden?
Yes, gardening is
For a living.
Not for a living, no, but it's a good topic considering we're in the middle of this apocalypse. People, there's the whole talk about food and food shortages, and I think talking about gardening and expanding on the things that we know about gardening maybe help some folks that don't know. It's a good topic.
Well, we are in the middle of Colorado, and there's a lot of farms.
Yes, this is the butthole of the United States that we are in.
said that earlier once.
Yeah, well, I believe it.
And the second topic we're going to be talking about is based on another paper I did for science class. It was a final I did last week. And it kind of ties into gardening because of the pollination source. One of the
bees? We're going to talk about bees?
We're going to talk about bees. Killer bees.
Killer bees.
Yes. And those are specifically, they're interesting to our continent in the Americas because they are an invasive species.
Are they real then? Killer bees are real?
Killer
okay.
bees are real. And they are harming the bees that pollinate within this continent. They are a big threat to the honey industry and a big threat to, well, not as big of a threat to pollination, but a definite big threat to what's considered a more milder bee, you know.
The regular old honeybee.
The regular old European
which is
honeybee.
supposedly disappearing.
Yes.
Is that because of killer bees? I thought they didn't know what was causing that.
Well, no, they don't know specifically what's causing the disappearing of bees in general, but we do know that in the Americas, at least, this is what's causing some invasive actions between these two species.
Okay, cool. All right.
So, let's get into gardening.
Gardening, baby.
Gardening.
Love it. Gardening is a lot of fun, actually.
Yes, it is.
I know a few things about gardening.
What do you know?
Well, I just tell you, it's like, I think it's considered the most expensive hobby, believe it or not.
Really?
You can look that up. Google it. Google that, baby.
Right
yes,
now.
you better fact check me. I believe
Most expensive
hobby is gardening. Well, yes. Let's see, what does it say?
No, parachuting, yacht racing.
All
auto
right.
racing.
I don't know where I got my info.
No, maybe you're thinking
Somewhere.
of affordable hobbies.
I don't know.
I don't think everybody owns a yacht.
Right. Yeah, that's dumb.
Or everybody goes parachuting.
Yeah, it's the most expensive common hobby. Or maybe, as you termed it, affordable hobby.
Most expensive common hobby. Let's try
Yeah,
that.
try that. Anyways, gardening, I thought...
Skydiving.
Okay, never
Scuba
mind.
diving,
What do you do?
pottery.
Google knows nothing. The only thing Google knows is it can listen to you. And I bet you by the end of this podcast, if you leave Google open, it's going to say that gardening is the
What,
most...
just because it hurt us?
Yes, it's listening. It's always listening.
Did you know bungee jumping is the most dangerous hobby? I didn't know that.
What?
That just pulled up right here.
Where are you getting your info?
10 deadliest hobbies.
I'll be darned. Bungee jumping.
Bungee jumping, and scuba/deep sea diving.
Do you ever have a desire to try that bungee jumping?
No, I do have a desire for skydiving, though.
You do. You jump out of a plane
Yes.
with nothing.
Except for a parachute. I don't have a burning desire, but I wouldn't mind to try it.
What would keep you from bungee jumping?
I don't know. There's no parachute involved.
But there's a bungee. It's a rubber band, man.
It's a rubber band, and have you ever pulled a rubber band too far?
Yeah,
What happens?
it breaks.
Yeah, that would be. First of all, you're falling.
Yep.
Second of all, that would be one hell of a slap.
Yeah.
Sting your finger.
Yeah.
Look at that humongous rope flying at you.
Yep, that would be good. But skydiving, huh?
Skydiving, yeah.
Skydiving.
More aviation based than skydiving, just flying. But I don't know.
I knew a kid, well, I shouldn't say a kid growing up. Hell, I was 30. He was in his 20s, and he liked to skydive. It was my friend's wife's brother, and he was into it. In fact, I was thinking that a good present for your mom, she wasn't your mom at the time. She wasn't even my wife at the time. She was going to turn 30, and I thought the coolest birthday present would get her a tandem skydive jump with, I forget the kid's name, Conrad, Cody, maybe. It was one of those K sounding. Anyways, and then her friend told me, oh, no, she doesn't even like to fly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, on a side note, skydiving, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think? Why you got such a...
Skydiving, you know, if your parachute fails, you're not gonna suffer too much when you die. I don't think it's just gonna be splat.
Oh, yeah, no, there's at least 30 seconds of, you know, it's, there's a lot of that. So,
My ears hurt. I don't know how these guys feel listening.
all right.
Anyway,
Gardening is not the most expensive hobby, at least not according to Google. But I know that somewhere along the lines I heard that. Anyways, I do know a little bit about gardening. Gardening is it's a cool topic.
Yes.
Especially as I mentioned earlier. Growing your own food when you cook something that you've grown.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you've worked in the kitchen with your mom, and you guys have been gardening for a long time.
Hell yeah. It's
So,
the best.
Yeah.
Ever heard of linguine?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know that dish.
No, well, what about something that you guys have put together?
Oh, spaghetti.
Spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
Yep. All those tomato. Oh, salsa. What about it? It's
Salsa,
coming up
oh my
fall.
gosh.
Not
Guac,
still a
salsa.
few months away, but I know that's one of your big
Peaches,
things.
the peaches, yeah.
Oh, peaches.
I mean, that's more tree-based, orchard-based.
Yep.
But,
We've
it's
got
still
peach
growing.
trees. Yep. Got a peach tree out there. 2 peach trees.
Yeah.
An apple tree. No, a pear tree and a plum tree.
Yeah. Not apple.
And, of course, living here in the butthole of the United States. Not all of Colorado, just where we are. Over on the western slope, Palisade peaches are world famous.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yep.
Which they just lost 80% of their...
Well, I'm worried that our trees aren't going to make it.
Yeah, they're looking pretty bad, too.
We had a freeze, folks, for those of you that lived in mild climates. Climates? Climate. Say that word for me.
Climate.
Is that how it's said? Because I was going to say climate.
No, you could... I don't know.
Yeah, it gets cold, and if it warms up and then it gets cold again, your plants can end up dying, and we might have lost the peach tree out there.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
There's some buds.
Yeah, but back to what I was saying, gardening. When you cook food that you've grown, there is some sort of weird. Not only is it, I think it tastes better, but there is a weird
Chemical
feeling.
reaction in your brain. That
There's
basically
something.
makes you like kind of eating candy, but even more so because it's like
It's something.
based.
Yeah,
It's whatever that chemical reaction is that makes it's the excitement factor. Have you ever heard the excitement factor? You feel
like adrenaline excitement factor.
I don't know. It's the idea that you feel more satisfied thinking about doing something or about to go do something than actually doing it. Like, if we're going to go camping, you feel more exciting getting ready to go camping. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to go
Right,
camping
yeah.
than actually at the camping.
Yeah,
place.
that's a thing.
That is a thing. Yeah, it's like a high for your brain.
I think that might be it because you're out there, you're picking it, you're taking it off the tree, you're pulling it out of the ground, picking it off the bush.
And you're just thinking ahead.
Thinking ahead. I'm going to make this, great spaghetti sauce, or I'm going to cook up these carrots or whatever in a great stew. And then you're washing them the whole time thinking of it. Could be very well exactly what it is.
I think it's got to relate to that some.
But it's a thing, and it is awesome.
Yes.
So easy to
How do you
get into
plant
gardening.
plants? How do you plant plants?
How do I plant plants? I do it. Of course, I haven't planted in a long time because your mom's been the planter. But back when I was gardening, in the 90s, and the 90s, early 2000s, before we got married, I would get ready with my seeds. I would start everything from seed.
Do seeds.
I do seeds.
I just recently tried seeds and they haven't been working out well.
Well-
Granted, they're like from the 1980s.
Yeah,
They're old.
Old seeds do require a little more care. But the way to do it, if you want to talk about gardening, if we're going to do a tutorial on gardening, you take your seeds. You get yourself some Ziploc bags, some big ones, some like 2-gallon Ziploc bags. You figure out how many, let's say, tomato plants you're going to plant. The more the merrier. Because tomatoes, when it comes time to harvest them, you're going to be pulling a couple off of each plant each day or each couple of days. So you want to have, if you need 6 tomatoes for your sauce, then you're going to probably want to have 6 plants so you can at least get 1 tomato off of that plant for that sauce. So you figure out how many plants you're going to make, right? Excuse me.
Yes.
You get the seeds. You get the Ziploc bags. You get some paper towels or toilet paper or paper napkins.
Okay.
Okay. You
Thin paper, just paper.
just a paper that holds moisture.
You can't do like this paper, right?
Not
writing paper.
No, it's got to be a moisture holding paper, like a paper towel,
Okay.
napkin. Toilet paper is probably the worst, but you're going to seal them anyways. I think I always used paper towels. I might have used toilet paper.
Well, when I've seen you do it before, and you did paper towel.
Right.
Yeah.
But actually, now that I think about it, it probably was supposed to be toilet paper.
Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you why, because of what I'm about ready to tell you.
Yeah.
So, you get your seeds. You take 3 tomato seeds, and you let's say a piece of paper the size of 2 squares of toilet paper.
Okay.
Okay?
Toilet paper's kind of rare right now.
It is rare. So,
You'll be using gold to plant your seeds in.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the thinking of those idiots just makes me laugh. Anyways, yeah, it's rare. So you get yourself a couple squares of toilet paper. You moisten them. You place about 3 seeds of whatever plant you're going to visit. A tomato, a pepper, corn, lettuce, whatever. 3 seeds in there. And the wet paper towel, and then you fold them inside of, the toilet paper. You fold them up in there, or you can wad them up in there. Anyways, the thing is to keep it wet and keep it together. And then you put these seeds, put all your tomatoes in one Ziploc bag, zip it almost all the way closed. And then when you get it to where it's almost to the end, you just a little blow in there.
Mm-hmm. Just fill it with air.
Well, mostly you exhale carbon dioxide?
Yeah.
Or monoxide? Which one is it?
Dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. So that's what you're exhaling. There's some oxygen in there as well. And then just a little bit in there. And then you seal it up. You don't bubble up the bag. You know, It's not like blowing up a balloon. It's just a puff.
When you said water, you don't fill the bag up
No,
with water.
you just moisten.
Spray it.
Spray it. That's a great
bottle.
idea. Yes. Use a spray bottle. Perfect. Dampen it with a spray bottle. Actually, that will help keep it from falling apart if I think about it. So.
Yeah, don't just run it under sink water. Just put it in the bag, spray the spray bottle into it, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, you might want to spray it before you put it in the bag.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Kind of fold them in there, spray them.
And then put them in the bag?
Put them in the bag.
Okay.
Then you take these bags, and the best place to put these bags is in the cupboard above, because you need it to be dark. Okay. In a cupboard that you don't use, that you're not opening and closing constantly.
Okay.
And a place that the temperature remains relatively warm and relatively constant. The best cupboard is usually the linen closet, if you have a house with a linen closet in it. But if you're in and out of that too much, that might not be a good. The secret cupboard is the one above the refrigerator.
Okay. Well, what temperature do you want?
Room temperature.
Room?
You see,
what is room temperature?
I think
that's probably different.
Well, go ahead and look it up. I want to say it's either 72 degrees or 78 degrees.
Let's see.
It's probably right
room
between
temperature
there.
is 68 to 72.
Okay, so 72 degrees
Fahrenheit.
would be perfect. Yep.
Fahrenheit. Celsius is 20 to 22.
So 68 to 72 is considered room temperature.
Yeah.
Now you got to realize the thing about that closet, that cupboard up there, if you ever reach your hand in there, you will feel that it's a little warm in there, even in the winter, because the refrigerator, when it runs, it exhausts heat.
Yes, because it doesn't want to use that heat for anything.
So, as that heat's expelled, it goes up and it hits that cupboard, and it keeps that cupboard a nice room temperature.
Okay. So that's how you plan.
No, that's not how you plant.
That's how you.
That's how I prep to plant.
Yes.
You've got to be prepping your soil too.
Okay.
So,
how do you do soil prep?
Well, soil prep, you can be scientific about it, or you can just be artsy about it. Which one do you want described?
I'm more of a scientific person.
I was afraid you're going to say that. So, that requires money. This is probably where I came in with it's the most expensive hobby. You have to do an agronomy. And that is study the soil to figure out the proper pH balance of your soil.
Okay.
And you can run down to your Zamzos or your gardening store, your Ace Hardware probably, and pick up it's a soil pH tester. It's an electronic stick that you stick into the ground, and it will tell you either digitally or on a gauge what your soil pH is. And depending on how large an area you've set aside to garden in, you'll have to take several samples throughout that area. Now, once you get those readings, you then have to go and correct for a balanced pH. Some soils are a little alkaline, some soils are a little acidic.
What do you want?
You want a balance between the two.
So you want like equal numbers, equal acidic, and
yes.
Okay.
Actually, I should take that back. It should weigh just slightly on the acidic side, just slightly.
Just slightly.
That'll help spread out your nitrogen. Now, you want to do this scientifically. Once you get that number, you can get on your trusty computer and look up the amount of fertilizer, both nitrogen and phosphorus, that you'll need for whatever plant you're planting.
Okay.
You get those calculations off the internet. You add to your soil those elements.
How would you add them?
You see, I do it the artistic way.
The rototill?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
See, so gardening artistically is more, and I shouldn't say artistically, I should say the old-fashioned way. Take a chunk of dirt, put it in your mouth, and decide what it tastes like. Laugh. He's laughing. Folks, this is the kid that I have video of eating dirt. He would be out in the garden as a little kid.
Little.
Eating dirt. He'd have a little dirt ring around his mouth. And we did use organic fertilizers, just so you know.
Nice.
It's all right. The bacteria is good for you. Built up your biome, your gut biome.
So, therefore, you can always say, haha, you ate some shit.
We'll just say vitamin B. Good vitamin B. I'm going to tell you about the way I like to do it instead of explaining the scientific way. How's that?
Well, you did a pretty good job. Just phosphorus levels and acidic levels.
Phosphorus and nitrogen, you need that. Your plant's going to need that. So let's just go back to, here's a typical way of doing it.
Rototilling and
I'm getting my rototill out and I am churning that soil, baby. And I am churning it and churning it and churning it and getting it so nice and soft and fluffy and mostly full of, are you ready for this? Air. Yeah.
Yeah, you want it airy.
You know something.
Yeah.
What do you know about it?
Because when we do potted plants, which for tomatoes, this is a really good idea for this area because of a fungus that'll eat up your tomatoes if you plant them right into the ground. It lives in the ground and it'll eat the tomatoes. I forgot what that fungus is called. I can look it up real fast. But you put them in these pots that have like a water base at the bottom. You fill the base with water, and the soil in them stays there for 3 to 5 years. And when you're reusing the soil each time, you want to basically take the soil almost all the way out, and put it back in after, stirring it around to make it airy again.
Airy.
Because when the potting soil sits over the winter and all the snow's on it, it really compresses down. So when you want to make that soil airy, which me and Mom just did this week, we did.
I saw them all out there.
Potting, yeah.
Yep.
These are mostly for tomatoes. You can also put peppers in it, but tomatoes is the big thing to keep the fungus out.
For the fungus, yeah.
Because it goes above ground. And you don't want to set the pots on the dirt either. You want to set them on like a cement pad, which is weird. You're like, plants on cement? That doesn't sound right. But the fungus will actually jump from the dirt, like when it rains or something, into the pot.
Drops will splash up off the ground.
And we experienced that one year, and we actually had to get rid of the soil, sadly, that we paid for, and bleach those pots out to kill that fungus, and then have to buy new dirt and put it in. I think this is our 3rd year using the same dirt since then, and we haven't had problems.
Right.
Putting it on a cement pad. But yeah, the whole point is to air out that dirt or fluff it back up, basically by digging that dirt out and putting it back in.
Fluffing it up, adding air to the dirt. Now, that's what I want.
That's what the rototiller does.
That's what the rototiller does. Here's the thing. I'm going to blow some minds right now. We've all learned in school that plants use carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
I get the two mixed up.
Photosynthesis
to
and
create
cellular-
photosynthesis, which then
respiration.
does, yep. We always thought that that's what the plant was doing, was turning carbon dioxide into oxygen.
Yes.
And that carbon dioxide, we assume, is what makes the plants grow. What do you know about that?
That is... So the process of photosynthesis is a little more complex than that.
Well, let me just get to the secret.
Secret? What's
Yes.
the secret?
Plants use oxygen to grow. If oxygen cannot reach the roots, the plants cannot grow. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yes.
No, but I'm just saying, I know you know that, I know that, but
Yeah.
trust me, I just blew some heads right now. There's some gardeners or some folks that are maybe thinking about dabbling in gardening that were going off of everything we learned in school, which is the sunlight makes the photosynthesis, makes the plants grow. No, that can happen all day long. Without oxygen in the soil, without oxygen getting to the roots, you got no growing plant.
Yep. And another common misconception is the plant actually uses that carbon dioxide. It uses the carbon part of it to basically stick to itself and, grow. The other part, oxygen, carbon dioxide, CO2, right? That O2 is used to create water. It's used to combine water and pull the oxygen off of it to use that water later in photosynthesis.
There you go.
So oxygen's used that way too, which comes back. Guess where you get your water? The roots.
Yep.
That's a scientific-y way of explaining it.
Or just the, hey, I know a little something way. So, yeah, I rototill. When it comes to soil samples, I did that when I was a lot younger. I don't anymore. I think that just by adding manure to most soils on planet Earth, now not sand, obviously, or not, absolute alkaline clay soils. I mean, you'd have to add a lot. But most topsoils that can sustain most grass or, trees or other things, I think just adding some of that nice nitrogen-rich cow shit to your soil and rototilling it in really good is enough of a balance to the soil to get most plants what they need, nutrient-wise, to grow.
And when you say cow shit, you do that because that's what you rototill not only into our garden spaces before, but that's also what you'll see the farmers do around here. About, right before spring, you'll see these big trucks, big dump trucks filled with cow crap, and they just have a little spinner at the back of them that flings it out into the field, and those trucks will just drive around the field, and all this will be flung out, which later they'll go and plow it and mix it in.
Yep. And I know it's hard to imagine that. There's people that might end up listening to this podcast that have never stepped foot outside of a city and have no idea that there's trucks flinging shit all spring.
Quite literally.
And fall. Yeah. No, they get behind one of them when you're driving down the road.
And it's not like we're farmers. This is just observation.
Yeah, we're not farmers.
Yeah.
No, this is observation. We live out here. Where do we live? In the what?
In the what?
Where do we live?
The asshole?
No, okay. In the asshole
You
of
said
the United
butthole,
States.
whatever.
Huh?
You said butthole.
Okay. Yeah, this is our nation's butthole.
Yeah, if you were living anywhere else, you'd still say that, I guarantee it.
Probably. I don't. Most people can come spend some time here and just go hang out in downtown Greeley. And not that we're there, but that's the major metropolitan to us. I guess we're stuck between there and
Fort Collins.
So, anyways,
Just
yes.
this area, Weld County.
So I've tilled my soil. It's all oxygenated, and I put some cow shit in there, and it's all nice and fluffy and tilled. So I'm a week away from the seeds that I put in the cupboard.
Okay, so it's been a week since
It's been 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
And I open the cupboard and I pull out a bag, and what do you think I find?
Bunch of root balls.
A bunch of root balls in toilet paper.
Yeah.
And they're all moist and happy, and they're all white, and they're excited, and they now want a little sunlight and oxygen
And nutrients.
and nutrients and moisture, a little more moisture, although they've got enough moisture. So I'll take my little bag, Ziploc bag, out to the garden, and depending on what I'm planting, depends on the depth of how deep I put these little balls in, and I pull them out of the bag gently. You don't want to yank them out. You don't want to separate them. Your little balls are already separated, or, you know, if they're balls, squares, whatever. You've already had them separated because you put 3 in a thing, and then you've stuck that, you've wet that thing, you've made another one, 3 in there. So each, you're making little packets. Maybe I didn't mention that before. So you're not putting all of them together. So like 3 seeds in a square of toilet paper or in 2 squares of toilet paper, fold it over so that they're inside there wetted. So you've got a little packet of exploding roots.
Yeah.
Take that little packet and you plant them.
With the toilet paper.
Yes, with the toilet paper and all. You don't try and
to
separate them. You'll break the roots. The idea is not to break the roots. They're little delicate flowers now, right?
Okay.
So you take those, and like I say, depending on what plant you're planting determines the depth. You plant them at the appropriate depth. You give them a little water on top, and then rinse and repeat.
Yeah. How do you set up the garden space other than rototilling? Do you like make rows? What do you do? Like, because I remember earlier when we didn't have a pool there,
Right.
we'd make trenches, right?
Yep.
And you'd have trenches, so later when these plants were bigger, you could just set the hose in the trench, and the water would run down the trench and water all the plants at once.
Right. You want to be careful when you're planting to flood. It's called flood irrigating. So the rows that you were talking about are basically mounds with trenches in between, right? And I'm sure people can imagine what I'm talking about.
So it's like a trench with a mound in the
Yes, with a mound of fluffy dirt. You're putting your
seed in that
the mound.
Okay.
And then the water in the trench.
Yes.
Because if you put water on top of the mound, you're eroding away the depth of your seed.
And you're also making it non-areas.
And you're compacting it, exactly. So yeah, you water your trench.
With the mound that's kind of above.
And the mound's above, but what it does is it actually acts as a sponge, and it soaks that water up out of the trench. So your stuff stays moist.
Just like the pots that we use with
Just-
the little water at the bottom. It sucks it up from the bottom with the little dirt clumps and
Yep.
right up to the plants.
And don't do anything but we'll keep the soil moist. So you don't want to, like I said, you don't want a sprinkler flooding it. And if it rains, you know, you might have issues, or hails, you might have issues. But, you know, you can get away with another 7 days, hopefully, of direct sunlight and
After
temperatures that don't drop below freezing.
Yeah.
And then you'll see little green sprouts bloop, start popping up.
And then
those-
after that, it's fine if it rains or anything.
Yep.
Yeah. Rain's free water.
Rain is free water. Once the plant is, you know, become a plant, you know, in other words, has leaves and a stalk, you're fine to water it with a sprinkler or let rain call. You just don't want any hail. Hail will destroy your plants. And then, depending on what kind of plant you've planted, some have 90 days to harvest, some have less. You'll know when it's time to harvest tomatoes. They'll be juicy, red looking, you know. Your onions the tops will grow out of the onions, green stalks, and once the seed ball bends and falls over, then it's time to harvest the onion.
Okay.
Lettuce, you want to harvest lettuce before it goes to seed, so you'll see the big ball the iconic shape of lettuce, a big leafy ball of leaves.
Yep.
Once that reaches a desired size, and that could be as small as a fist. When you have enough lettuce, you can go grab a fist of lettuce each evening and have fresh lettuce every night in your salad.
It's great.
Oh, it is the best. And I'll tell you, if you like lettuce, if you like salad, you don't know what salad is until you've had lettuce that you've pulled out of the ground 5 minutes ago.
I bet that, yeah, that would make sense.
No, you're laughing at me.
Well, I've never really had fresh lettuce because we've kind of didn't have very successful.
We haven't had lettuce here. No,
Yeah.
I still want to put some in. Now that the trees are mature and I've got a nice canopy of leaves, we should be able to plant lettuce. See, lettuce requires cooler temperatures.
Okay.
So
It can't just have direct sunlight beating down on it all the
yeah,
time.
right. And cooler temperatures. The problem that we have here in the butthole of the United States is it goes pretty much from freezing our asses off to bake hot.
And then freeze, right?
And then back to freeze on the other side. It's like our spring and fall aren't really good seasons. We have them, but they're not really good.
Spring is just winter and summer combined.
Pretty much.
You'll have winter for 3 days and then summer for a week, and then winter for 2 weeks and then summer for a couple of days, and then it'll go right back to it. It's all over the place.
It's
There's not even a set period of days that, each one comes back through.
8 inches of snow on Mother's Day. I've got pictures, so.
Yep.
Yeah, that's gardening. It's fun.
And when you
It's
talk
very
about
rewarding.
going to harvest, you said you just have to, how many times do you water, you flood those trenches in between that, like every 2 days, every day? What do you do?
You don't want the soil to dry.
To dry. Just don't let it dry.
Don't let it dry.
So, if you have a couple cloudy days, you can do it every, 3 days. But if you have a really hot sunny day, you're doing it tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's hot today, and we do it tomorrow morning. If it's hot again tomorrow, we do it the next morning. But if it's rain or if it's cloudy, the soil's still moist, we don't need to put, the water on it.
Okay. And what I've actually experienced with the pots that we have that I was talking about earlier.
Yep.
Is those are nicer for long term, like if you don't want to water every day. So you just want to, every time you do water, you just want to moisten the top a little, and that doesn't take but barely any water. And then you fill the bottom, and you can leave it for 3 to 4 days. But you, unless there's really hot days, that water really gets sucked up on the hot days. But if there's a week of cloudy days, sometimes that water will last a week down at the bottom. So, if you go on a short trip, camping trip, 4 days, it should be fine if you just fill the bottom, moisten the tops right before. But if you're at home and you're able to check it, you'd want to do it every couple days. Just check the water at the bottom.
Well, let me ask you this about those pots.
Yeah.
Do you notice that as the plants are bigger, they use more water?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So once the plants get bigger, they really do oh, wow, it's half empty and I watered it yesterday.
Gotcha. So maybe that's something to look forward. I always just went and checked, but something to keep in mind if you're planting a garden in soil in your backyard.
And once they are at a size that kind of stay around, they don't always keep growing. Once they're, oh, that's a tomato plant that stays about that size. You can kind of create a schedule because it'll kind of consume the same amount of water typically, depending on weather, but typically each day, so you'll know when to water.
Right.
But yeah.
And you've tried seeds, but you didn't listen to your old dad.
No, I listened to Mom. I did.
You didn't just say that.
I did just say it because that's what happened.
Okay.
I said, should we do the bag thing? And Mom's like, no, just put them in the ground. They should be fine. I tried these little.
I want to tell you
cups.
something.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. And I'll tell you what you did wrong.
What did I do wrong?
You did not supply a temperature controlled area.
No,
the
I left them in the garage.
Yes, and that was too cold. So they were going from warm to cold, from warm to cold. They really want the temperature to try and remain plus or minus, 8 degrees.
Yes, and this is the solution me and Mom came up with. For next year, seeds, you want to buy seeds now because if you go to your local nursery, they're really expensive just to buy the little plants.
Right.
They're like seeds. You'll get a pack for $5 and you'll get all kinds of seeds. You'll get 10, 20. You'll get one plant for $3 at this place. And granted, it has passed all the hard parts of seeding, but it's still, you get this little itty bitty cup of dirt with a plant in it, and you're paying for basically just the plant. There's no dirt value, nothing.
But as you've already mentioned, trying to grow from seeds can be frustrating.
Can be frustrating.
So you've gone the route. Tell me about the route you guys have gone with the buy the plants.
With the whole buy the plants idea.
And what does that mean, buy the plants? You're buying little.
You're buying plants.
You're going
that have already
to where?
They're about 8 to 10 inches tallish.
So these are like the plants you see at Home
tomatoes
Depot,
are.
at Lowe's,
Yes.
at the garden centers.
Yes. But this is at a local nursery.
Right,
so
but
it's
I'm just
not-
for anybody that might be listening that's
not
living
like
in
a-
Chicago or who
Yes.
knows where. It
So
could be
you can
anywhere.
go to Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, blah blah blah. They've got these little Bonnie, usually it is, plants with the cup of dirt in it, and
Yeah.
they're growing plants. And that option's easier because all you have to do with those is prepare your soil first, like we said, aerate it or the pot, and take it out of the cup, rip the roots up a little because you want to loosen them, not literally rip them, but loosen them, and stick it in dirt, support it with the dirt around it so the stem's straight, and water it. And that's easier than starting from seeds because you don't have to do the hassle of temperature, gentleness, the root ball, all that stuff. But the solution me and Mom have come up with...
But it's more expensive.
It's more expensive to do it that way, yes.
Yep.
The solution we've come up with for our seeds in dirt is grow lights.
Oh, yes.
So
you see, that will keep the soil temperature constant.
Yes, because what we want to do is set up like a station in the storage room
Yep.
with a couple grow lights.
Yep.
You put the seeds in the soil in the little cups like normal, kind of like the nursery does. We saw this at the nursery. They had shelves with grow lights.
Yep.
And you put like plastic over it, like a plastic tarp type thing. And you put it over the seeds, and it helps keep the moisture in, and it helps keep the temperature
constant. Yep.
Because even if the lights shut off, you still got a couple hours, which you don't want the lights to shut off. But if power outage, you still got the temperature.
Let me let you in on another little secret.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say secret, just another little fact that most people don't. They're like, oh, really? An oh, really fact. Here's, we'll call it oh, really facts. We're creating a new segment here.
Oh, really?
Oh, really
I'm gonna
facts.
write that down.
Yes, write that down so we can disseminate our bullshit as oh, really facts.
Oh, really facts. That's what they call it from now on.
So, did you know?
Oh, really?
Exactly. Anyways, plants. Here's one. Hayden, sun. Is that what makes the plants grow?
No.
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 Well,
it makes the carbon from the carbon dioxide
do you know when the plants are actually doing their growing?
nighttime.
Exactly.
Because that's when they're breathing.
Yes. So how did you know that? That's supposed to be an oh, really.
That's an oh, really for hopefully the listeners, but I've studied a lot, especially this year, on the process of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. The scientific way of studying it with all the chemicals and balancing your equations and stuff like that.
Yep.
On how that really works to the nitpicky organelles within the cell that the plant uses in that process.
Yep.
I'd have to pull out my notes to do that because I wrote down all of them and I don't have them all off the top of my head because this was a semester ago.
Oh, really?
6 months. But I literally have the process down to nitpicky.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
You get it now.
I do get it. Oh, really?
Oh, really? Yeah, no, plants grow in the dark. They when it gets dark, that's when they do their growing.
That's when, they're sucking the carbon off of and sticking it onto themselves, basically.
Yep. So there you have it.
Because that's all plants and trees are, carbon. That's why firewood burns so well. It's carbon.
It's carbon. All right then, sir. Well, that's, I guess, all I can tell you.
Yeah, about
and it's
gardening.
fun. It's freaking fun as hell.
Fun.
Sounds boring.
And
sounds like, boring housekeeping or whatever, but it isn't.
It isn't.
There's something rewarding about it.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you like a sense of a to-do list. Like, if you get caught up in work and stuff, it gives you a sense of, oh, I gotta look forward to my garden when I get home or before I go out to work.
Dude, my favorite time of the weekend, or one of my favorite times, is the morning with my cup of coffee out there in the garden examining what's happened during the week while I was at work.
Yeah.
It's like, look at these things. They've done this, they've done that. It's
especially with you, because you do work and we're doing the watering and stuff, you get to see that change.
I get to see the change. Yeah, exactly.
But a very important part to know about gardening, the importance of gardening, is kind of where it originated from. Well, I'd like to go just a very quick history lesson.
Oh, jeez.
Unless you don't want it. But
conversation transfer, not history transfer. Come on now.
Well, if this is just very important to know, kind of.
I can tell you the history of gardening.
Okay, tell me.
People were hungry. They wanted to eat. They saw animals eating. They went over and got those plants, and they started eating them. Before they knew it, they realized their plant was all stripped of food, and they started walking around to find another plant. And then one idiot went, you know what? we can plant these plants and then stay right here where we are, and they'll grow.
You're actually absolutely correct.
Son of a bean, I know some stuff.
They're called hunter-gatherers.
Okay.
They walked around basically before farming was existed, 70,000 to 80,000 years ago. Notice these are very old humans. This is kind of going into like the more primate-based humans. And they just hunt for their food and eat plants and eat the things they hunted.
Yeah.
Right? And they'd see, just like you said, until 10,000 BC, they started farming.
Yeah, somebody was like, hey, man.
Yeah, just stuck it into the ground.
Yeah,
and
let's
figured
move
that
this
out.
plant. Let's take it with us.
And
You
this-
know, I want to go live down by the beach or whatever.
Yes. And hunter-gatherers still exist today. Africa, South America are just some very general examples. where
And we
you
got
can
some in
find them.
downtown Denver.
Yeah, really.
I'm serious. The homeless population has gotten freaking out of control. Anyways.
Yeah. But anyway, then this idea of farming came around, and it was only based on providing for yourself or your family, right?
Yep.
In 10,000 BC. And this would make it so you stayed in relatively one place.
Are you really going to give us a history lesson?
Yes, because here's the big banger.
Okay, let's jump to the
Here's
Big
the
Bang.
big banger. Society. Guess what society was based off of?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Farming.
Right.
Because social status happened when the farmer started making more food for just himself.
Right.
It was like, hey, I'll trade with you for these crops. And that's how people ate. And as progression happened, farmers became the feeders of the world. Like
Yep.
they are today.
Sure.
And even though in the 20th century when they were, all poor and depression in 1920s and blah, 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 they still fed the country. And you really got to respect them for that.
Well, totally. I mean, and they don't get the respect they deserve.
Yes.
You got some Mo who's, sitting in his cubicle in his skyrise office there, pushing papers around. His tummy starts grumbling. He runs on down to the vending machine or whatever, presses a button, and bada bing, bada boom, his tummy's taken care of. With no consideration given to, well, there's another thing to modern farming. It's called the supply chain, and that's what people are dealing with right now. They're talking about food shortages.
Yeah.
The supply chain's being disrupted because of this virus. But anyways, yeah. These people, you wouldn't believe the myriad of folks that think that food comes from the grocery store.
Which a lot of the grocery store products, even the artificial ones that you see that have been factorized, those still come from grain. And where does grain come from? Well, the ground. And who farms it? The farmers. The
Yep,
farmers.
guys out here in butthole of America.
Yeah.
The flyover
Not
states.
just us.
No, I'm not a farmer. We don't farm.
We don't farm.
Our gardening is for our own personal consumption.
Yes.
But no, I get it. I get it.
And just the respect that you need to understand. And one more thing I'd like to bring up about gardening before going into a shorter topic on killer bees.
Oh, we have another topic?
Yes, remember?
Yep.
But this idea of new farming, modern farming. So we talked about farming, but that's kind of the old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah.
Cool systems I want to show you on your computer screen, if you'd look, are underground farming.
Oh my, yeah. I've heard about this, and they do it in sky rises and stuff.
And cities, yeah, I've got those pictures too, where you see these cities, and they literally build them into buildings, kind of like this picture that I just pulled up.
Wow, yeah.
And they've designed buildings to where you can plant plants on the top of your office while you're working.
Well, I think some of these new organic farms, aren't they all inside so that they're to control for pests and everything, where they don't have to use
Pests,
chemicals? They can,
water circulation
Yep, they can
systems.
have all the scientific controls in place where they're not using chemicals on these foods crop. Wow, that's amazing. I would invite anyone to check out on the computer.
And no, these aren't like big plants. These are, peppers and stuff that are smaller.
Sure,
that can fit
right.
in the
Yeah,
shells.
not a tree, right.
But this is another system that we've started to feed the world with because our land is running out.
Right.
So this is a very innovation.
It's very innovative, but how? I don't know. Is it very? can't even think of the word. Not sustainable.
It's very sustainable.
Is it very efficient? That's the word I'm
Efficient,
looking for.
yes, because instead of having just a plot of land with a bunch of plants, you can take that same amount of land
and stack it.
them on top of each other, so you multiply the amount.
So your yields.
And then the water circulation makes it so any extra water that dribbles down,
It's not going away. It's
not
going into
away.
a tank and
Going
being
into a tank
reused.
and being reused.
Oh yes, okay.
And fertilization's easier too.
Yeah.
So it's just these systems, these innovation systems for modern farming have been pretty cool.
Why do they look like they're in an operating room there?
It's very factory based. It's very
Well, but they got masks and gloves on. They're like they're
I don't
operating
know for sure. But
Is that to keep? Oh, probably to keep little funguses and microbes out of there.
They're very sanitary places.
Right.
And the idea that we got this off of is, have you ever heard of the China rice fields?
China rice fields?
The rice fields. I'm going to pull up some images for you to look
I know that they grow rice in China.
Do you see this wavy?
Sure.
They literally cut them into mountains. They cut slabs into mountains.
Right.
Fill these slabs with water and then put their rice patties onto them. And they're like shells. I'm sorry, I can't blow this up.
Are you just saying that's what they decided they're like shelves in that way? So they thought, let's just put our rice in shelves?
But they just cut them into these mountains, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like a mountain with all these shelves of rice.
Okay.
And we just got that idea. Wait, we can stack, right?
Sure.
So that's all we got on gardening, I think, though.
Okay. Well, yeah. Good topic. You wanted to talk about bees. Bees are very important for pollination.
Yes, pollination. Have you ever heard of the European honeybee?
Yes, that's the bee that we have out here that goes around and pollinates our trees and shrubberies.
Yep. So that is a bee that does your pollination and creates your honey. Now, do you know what the original use of honey is for? Like what the bees actually use honey?
I'm afraid to say I think I know that it's puke, isn't it?
It is puke, yes.
It's honey is bee puke.
What do they use it for? Do you know what they use it for?
Feeding their young?
Yes, feeding the larvae.
Yeah.
That's their original use, but they have so much excess. That's where honey farms come from, to where humans started taking it. And
do we know for a fact that it's excess?
It's excess, yes.
Okay.
We do know that because
we're just stealing the food from the mouths of baby bees?
No, we're not. We're not, because the honey after a time will actually dry up and go old.
Yeah.
And fall off.
Right.
That's how we know.
Okay.
That's the most simplest way we know.
Okay.
I bet there's been scientific studies and all that. But the honeybee is very important to this continent's honey industry, right? You go to a store and eat honey often. Do you know most of that honey is made in the U.S.?
Okay.
That is a U.S. product.
Okay.
Beekeeping.
What do you mean it's U.S. product because they don't make it other places?
They do make it other places, but we have so much industry in honey here in America that we sell our own honey. Like, you always go, oh, it's made in the U.S. It's got to be better. It's not necessarily better. But the honey industry, most of the honey you'll buy is from the United States, made in the U.S. That is because our honey industry is so big, and we really, when we brought that European bee over, we took advantage of that, and we've just been expanding that ever since. It's very easy to build a colony of honeybees. You just need a box, basically. They've got fancy boxes with the little shells. It's really easy to collect, really easy to control. Now, there's this thing called the Africanized bee, and you may know it as the killer bee.
I've heard of it.
Yes.
I don't think, for the longest time, can I tell you a little something about that?
Yeah.
So what I know about the African bee.
Africanized.
The killer bee, circa 1978, United States of America. There's a big buzz about what's the matter? Why are you putting your head down?
Okay,
Come on now.
That was the worst dad joke ever.
No, that was great. So, anyways, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but United States, California, Southern California,
yes.
Texas, Arizona, It's been circa 1978.
It's actually 1998.
I think this was
It
no.
was 98 because that's what her.
Hold on, let me go back. Let me think. I can think. I'll tell you right now.
Smithsonian.
Green Pinto. That would have been okay. So this is
Look at your screen.
This is the late. Yeah. Okay. 1990 Killer Bees. Okay. But before they reached Texas.
Okay.
Okay. This is 1970.
Got it.
Flash. Dateline. Texas. The killer bees are coming. Dun, dun, dun. What's a killer bee? There are these Africanized bees that escaped from a lab.
Yep.
And they're coming. There's a swarm of them. They've left South America. And they're moving into Mexico. And they're going to reach northern Mexico. And they're going to be in the United States in a couple of years. Dun, dun, dun. There's going to be killer bees here.
Yep.
Okay? Now, here I am. Circa 1980 in a Green Pinto. And I pull up to a stoplight. And all of a sudden, there's a swarm of bees outside the car. And what's the first thing that I think it is?
Killer bees?
Killer bees.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody at the intersection panics. They're running red lights. They're just, bolting from this swarm. Well, I don't know if it was a real swarm, but I took off. And I thought it was killer bees. And I ran home and I said, the killer bees are here. The killer bees are here. And I made, I look like a fool. Anyways, go ahead. On with your thing.
Well, what's the point of that story?
Just that they're bullshit. There's no killer bees.
There is killer bees.
Okay, well, they're not the big super threat that we were all
They've
frightened of.
killed 1,000 people.
Okay, all right.
Killed 1,000 people since 1957.
Why don't you give us the story there, Einstein?
Okay. The story is they did escape from a lab in Brazil.
I know some stuff.
They escaped, queens and a lot of European bees escaped from a lab. This lab was created to mix the European honeybee and local Brazilian honeybees to create a mutant or a super honeybee that was better at honey producing. That its main function, which honeybees are, but it did it even better. That did not happen. These bees,
So then back up and say
that didn't happen.
that's what they
that
wanted to do.
experiment
Yeah,
failed.
I gotcha.
Bees escaped in 1957 and mated with local bees around the Brazilian area. This is when the spread of the Africanized honeybee started. The reason you've heard all these panicky things is because if you are attacked by Africanized honeybees,
You're dead. You're done.
dead.
You better get underwater and stay underwater.
They dive underwater.
What?
They dive after you underwater. You are dead. Water does not help you. You will just drown. Because they dive up to 4 feet underwater to attack them. That's why they're so crazy.
What
They
about
can
smoke?
Smoke, that does affect them, yes.
Okay, so we're
Smoke
still
has helped.
smoke. So
But-
go run into the liquor store, get a pack of cigarettes, spark every one of them up.
But the idea of hiding underwater is the European bee won't go underwater.
Right.
But these killer bees, they're 1/4 of a
They
fraction.
don't dive underwater.
They do.
Get the video. Show me the video.
No, I don't know if there's
I
video.
don't believe this. YouTube it. Killer bees diving underwater. I don't think for a minute that they dive underwater. That's just horse shit. Not
Let's
happening.
just look it up. But the whole idea of these killer bees being,
Yes.
the whole idea of these killer bees is they're irritated in 1/4 of a fraction. Hover above the water.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not right.
Yeah. See, there you go.
They
Gotcha.
will not dive after you.
There you go.
Maybe that's just the cartoons. Where the bees-
Probably cartoons. You're watching a little too much Phineas and Ferb. That's what that
They
is.
don't have killer bees on that.
I'm just.
Oh, and I haven't watched that in like 5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Phineas.
one-fourth
Ferb.
of an irritation rate, right? They can get irritated way faster. They also, instead of attacking in just 1, 2, 3, they attack in hundreds.
Yes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard that.
And that's where this big hype came from, because when these sting victims had hundreds of stings all over them, it's ridiculous. And why these are an invasive species is they take the European queen, and they they get rid of her, and they replace him with their own queen, and they're taking over these European colonies. And the European colony then starts producing these Africanized bees, getting rid of these European honeybees, which is bad for the European honeybee because they're the type of honeybee you want, right?
Right.
And this not only gets rid of these native, in quotes, didn't originate from the Americas, but they've been here longer, species of bee. And the whole idea of this bee, you want to keep this bee, is mostly for the honey industry. The honey industry wants these bees because they're not as aggressive and they don't pose a threat as beekeepers. Because these Africanized bees, dude, still produce honey. They're still a honeybee. They're just more dangerous of a honeybee.
I see. So, what's the end? What's the end game on the killer bee?
The main point is you don't want these killer bees taking over your European bees because not only is that wiping out a native species, but it's bad for the honey industry. And the other main point is it affects the ecosystem as well because they'll kill organisms that typically prey on bees, birds and stuff.
Oh,
they'll kill those easier. Because if they prey on a bee, oh, there's a bee, I'm going to eat it. Well, 100 other bees come at you and kill you instantly.
Yep, then their buddies show up.
But the solutions to this that we found out is replacing the queen often with the European honey queen because, like we said, they take over that European queen. So there's a European queen all the time in there, and swarming the fields with male drones of European bees, that don't mate with Africanized bees. So there's more of production of European bees. These are the only two solutions I could find.
Oh, wow.
But they're spreading across this continent.
No, they're not up here.
They are up in the Americas. I don't think they're in Colorado specifically, but they are in California. Texas,
are they really?
And Arizona. They reached there in 1990. Not 1970.
Man.
When you were talking about.
I know.
1993 was here. I got it right here.
I just remember that was the big thing. I was a little kid, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, the killer bees are coming!" We'd be outside at recess, and every time a bee would fly by, it was a damn killer bee.
No, but they did reach in 1990, and they have spread throughout Mexico and several other Central American countries.
I guess the moral to the story is don't mess with the bees,
Don't mess with the bees.
Don't do it.
Have you ever gotten stung?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've gotten stung by a bee. I've gotten bit by wasps.
Same.
And
I've actually gotten stung by 2 bees.
Actually, I just recently, being stung, it was always the one that got me got it. There was no bee or wasp that ever got me that I didn't crush between my fingers. And that was the most satisfying crush. It's like you're getting stung, you reach out, you grab, you squeeze, it's dead. The last bee or wasp or whatever it was, yellow jacket, that got me, the son of a bitch got away.
Well, the thing
I didn't realize what was happening until it was too late.
Yeah, wasps don't die. They bite you. They don't sting you. The bee will die whether you crush it or not.
Right.
Which it's not good to crush a bee because you'll squeeze poison into yourself and it'll swell up more.
Right.
And last longer.
Right.
You actually want to take a credit card, I've heard, and get the scraper out that way. You don't even want to pull it out because you'll be
squeezing the poison in, yep. Well, they've got little barbs too, I think.
Yeah, they got barbs.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll break off in your skin and you won't even notice till later and it'll pop like a zit. It's gross.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I heard putting mud on it or all kinds of little.
Yeah, Betazine, like baking powder with water or something. But yeah, that's what I got on killer bees.
Wow.
And I got most of this information from the Smithsonian when writing this paper.
Right on.
So.
Right
yeah.
on.
Do you want to end this episode?
This feels like a good place to end it.
I think this does. Garden at home and watch out for killer bees.
Just, you guys, if you get into gardening, it's a lot of fun. I just don't know how to tell you. It is fun. And there might be some little frustrations at first, but there's a lot of information now. We've got this thing called the internet, And you can, if you're not listening to us, you can get it off the internet. So thanks for listening to this episode of Conversation Transfer.
If you like this episode, you can try more on Apple Podcasts or on our hosting website. Stay safe, keep thinking,
and keep talking.